Star Citizen Live, the Planet Content Team Q&A. I don't have it. Nobody makes me music or anything. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live, this time the Planet Content Team Q&A. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. Now, as always, if you've never seen an episode of Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take a little bit of time out of the end of our week, invite our developers to join us, and we answer questions from you, the Star Citizen community. And joining us on the show this week, we have members from our esteemed Planet Content Team. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Daniel.
Hello.
Only Sebastian followed the instructions correctly. Thank you, Sebastian.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
Now, the Planet Content Team, we've got Sebastian in the corner. We've got Max this way, and then down in the corner down there, Daniel. Before we jump right into the questions here, let's take a few minutes and talk about who you are and what you do, because there are many teams that work on planets, planet tech, and environments in general. So I want to make sure that folks understand specifically the areas in which you guys work. So Sebastian, let's start with you. Who are you? What do you do for Star Citizen?
All right. I'm Sebastian. I'm a principal technical environment artist with the Planet Content Team. And what I do most of the time is work on workflows and pipelines with the Planet Tech team as well to figure out new things on how we can do things we couldn't do before. And every now and then I also do some content for the game, but it's mostly about research and development.
Every now and then you get to make something for the game.
Yeah.
Max, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
I'm a senior environment artist, and I mostly create assets and set up planets and biomes, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Like you're doing behind you right now with your plants.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, in his first Star Citizen video of any kind whatsoever, Daniel, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
So I'm an environment artist in the team. I do basically the same that Max is doing, creating content, setting up planets and stuff like that. But I mainly focus on vegetation in this case.
Wow, so you can do everything Max can do.
Just better.
Maybe not
true.
as good. Maybe not as good.
It's the end of the day for you, but it's early in the morning for me, and I'm just starting crap. I clearly chose violence today. All right, now, Sebastian, you mentioned the Planet Tech team, which is a different team than the Planet Content team. Let's talk a little bit about that, set some expectations here before we jump into it. What does the Planet Content team do, and how is it different than the Planet Tech team?
Right. Like we're basically the end users for what the Planet Tech team does. So they like actually build the tools, and we are usually often the ones that request them and like are involved in the design process and like figuring out how things should work. But they are the ones that actually like implement them and write the code for them. We are mostly making content that fills the planet, but they are making all the magic that brings it all together, basically.
Gotcha. So for that reason, while we're going to talk about Planet Tech, and many of the questions that came through today are reflective of upcoming planet technologies. That is a separate team. We attempted to get some of those folks in with this show as well, but scheduling issues prevented that from happening. So we are going to discuss some planet tech stuff amongst everything else that the Planet Content team works with. But because we have a dedicated team for that, we are going to reserve some of those questions that came in this week for the folks who are dedicated to making that. Additionally, one of the highest voted up questions this week was about the progress of rivers, and we have a segment that we have filmed with Will Hain about rivers that is going to air in ISC in 2 or 3 weeks, depending on some other scheduling stuff. So we're going to reserve most of the rivers conversation for that, but we'll touch on it a little bit today. So right off the bat, one of the big questions that came forward, everybody knows that we're heading towards Pyro. this year. That's the focus of many teams throughout Star Citizen and the different studios. When the idea of Pyro was first introduced so many years ago through the concept art and stuff, there was a lot of talk about lava, molten planets, stuff like that. We haven't seen that as of yet in any of the stuff that we've shown of Pyro. So the question here is simply, will Pyro or any of its planets and moons have flowing lava fields?
Right. With the work on rivers, they're obviously like the bridge to lava feels very close. And we're definitely planning to do lava and also probably retroactively on Pyro after release, but I'm very unsure right now if it's gonna like make the deadline for the initial Pyro release to actually have flowing lava rivers. But it's definitely planned, and once rivers are fully there, I think the next step shouldn't be a big one to get to lava rivers. So.
As folks have seen with the Stanton system, an initial version of a planet will go out, and then it will continue to be iterated as new technologies come online. So just to reiterate that, whenever the Pyro system does come online, and folks in the chat are already saying, "You said Pyro this year." I said we're working on it this year. That's all I'm committing to. We're working on it this year. It may or may not have the flowing lava when it's first introduced. It just depends on how the schedules and the technologies line up at that time. Let's see, what else do we got? Any plans for explorable oceans, seas, or lakes? Lots of underwater gameplay. What can you tell us about the future of underwater gameplay?
Yeah, for us as the planet content team, like I do think we all want to provide like the same gameplay experience that you have on the planet surface, like visually, also underwater. So I think we're excited to look into that some more and have a lot of like biome diversity underwater eventually. Like when it comes to like exploration and stuff, I mean that's for like other departments, right? But we're definitely interested in providing the space and making everything look interesting.
Gotcha. Unicaller says, "Stop saying Road to Pyro." No, we're on the road to Pyro. That's where the majority of our focus for the Persistent Universe team is working towards right now. Doesn't mean it's going to come out this year. We're working towards it. With the introduction of clouds recently in, Alpha 3.15, is there any work currently done for dynamic clouds and weather effects like storms, lighting, etc.?
Right. So what we released with was like a V1 of clouds, basically. And there's like, I think it has been communicated plenty of times that we're still developing the technology for it. And the long-term plan is certainly to have dynamic clouds, animated clouds, and having clouds form and dissipate based on climate and weather. Right now, the focus is more on performance, getting them to be as performant as they can be. And then there will be another round of quality and detail improvement to allow us to make more elaborate and more realistic formations of clouds and have more diversity within or on one planet, basically. And then either with that or after that, the plan will be or is to look into dynamic clouds, animating and, forming and, the whole cloud deal, basically.
How detailed are you planning to go with cloud formations? Are you going to see things like supercells or hurricane formations?
As part of our continued effort to improve our tools and pipelines, and we're also working on more realistic global cloud generation. And part of that is definitely supercells and hurricanes that gather over oceans and then start moving towards land and stuff like that. Like for the first iteration, they will be static, obviously, unfortunately, but eventually the goal is definitely to have those. And we're like on all fronts, like even large scale and small scale, there are a lot of things we still want to improve and are working on to make better and more realistic.
While we're on the subject of clouds here, the clouds on Microtech are seemingly different from those in the Pyro demo that was shown at CitizenCon. Is this due to performance reasons, or why do they seem different?
Fundamentally, they're like the same. They're using the same system, the same kind of data. They just use a different amount of a different type of data that goes into them. And that was mostly because the art direction for the Pyro clouds was a very different one than for the Microtech ones. But fundamentally, they are the same clouds, and they should perform almost the same. And yeah, they will hopefully come out with Pyro then. But there's like fundamentally no real difference between them.
Is that something you think you might explore later, though? I mean, would clouds on different planets and different star systems form the same or look the same?
That's a very good question, and something we'll definitely have to come back to. With a lot of, we're making like a space game with a lot of stuff that nobody knows how it actually works. Like I don't think anyone has been to a gas giant, like really at least. So we're like always taking some liberty and trying to make things as interesting as we can. And with the systems we still want to release, I think there's plenty of room for more alien and other kinds of exploration to just, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely not gonna be all Earth like clouds. That's pretty sure.
Let's just stick with the clouds here for a little bit before we move on. Why don't we have clouds on other planets besides Microtech yet?
Right. It is a decent amount of time investment to author clouds, especially since we're like so early in the process. Like we don't have all the knowledge and all the tools we need or want to get whatever specific visual target. So we do have to spend a fair amount of time to develop those and figure out what we need to do to get the visuals we want. And then the system is still very much subject to change and will change dramatically over time. So we don't want to spend too much time, making things that are gonna like have to be reworked a lot of times. So we're definitely working on rolling out more clouds to more planets, but it's not gonna. As long as the system is so much being in development, we're not gonna just do them for all of them, or like we're not gonna do like generic ones for all of them. We want them to feel different and like portray the planet in a way that makes sense for the planet and just like enhances the atmosphere. Or the vibe of the planet, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's pretty much the thing. Like we want to do each planet justice and not just have something generic everywhere. But to do that, we need to spend the time on it and not want to throw away all the work we do. So it's like an iterative process that takes a bit of time, if that makes sense.
Recently, we put out Jumptown 2, and this question's about the 2D cloud layers here. Let's just get all the cloud stuff out of the way on one. The 2D cloud layers, the Jumptown 2 event moons, look poor in comparison to the Microtech clouds. This is their words. I mean, how is the progress looking for clouds on the? Why do the clouds look different on Jumptown 2 than they do on Microtech?
Well, I mean, they're using the old 2D clouds, and obviously they look worse. And just to it's basically the same answer that I've given before, right? Yeah. It's we will get to it, but it's not like we don't want to do generic clouds everywhere, but rather like tailor them to the specific scenario on planet. Gotcha. So that's the process.
Max, let's go back to talking about some underwater stuff. Any updates or progress on? You said you worked on Flora and stuff. What about underwater Flora stuff and stuff like that?
I mean, like Sebastian explained, like we do talk to like the engineers, right? They ask us what we would need to create like underwater biomes, and then it's like a back and forth. And yeah, I don't know, make some white box kelp meshes, for example, and then we say, okay, we need them to like sway in the water, right? And if that's not something that they've done yet, they have to like make that, come back to us, and that's like the process that we have for like creating this. Obviously, I don't want to take anything away from their upcoming river special, which will touch on the underwater stuff. But yeah, we did look into that like a little bit to support them early on, so they know what we eventually need. Basically we want to like scatter stuff around bodies of water, right? We want to have different vegetation underwater, different rocks. How do the rocks behave in comparison to like planet surface rocks? Yeah, just so that the player sees what he would expect to see if he goes underwater, right?
He or she.
He or she, yes.
So these conversations about underwater stuff are happening now.
I mean, it's a process, right? Yeah, it's like it's a development process. Like it starts somewhere, right? Eventually they ask us, and but yeah, I don't want to like spoil anything, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It has come up though, like with rivers and Blair touching a river and them dying feels a bit weird. So like, there's been conversations about underwater.
Yeah, at some point, it has to be where you step in water and you don't insta die.
Yeah.
Would be nice.
It's nice to know those conversations are starting anyway. Let's move from we've gone from clouds to the underwater. Let's go into some biome stuff here. Are dense jungle-like biomes even feasible with the current planetary tech? Like, could you make a really dense jungle right now? You just haven't, or what's going on here?
I mean, the problem is twofold. I'm gonna touch on the technical side of things, like the larger issue, which is like with Star Citizen, we have to make things that work from all distances. So it needs to work from space, from orbit, and from the ground. And right now, but that's something that's actually being worked on soon, very soon, I hope. Will be like a better representation of things in the distance on the GPU instead of the CPU, because then we can draw them much further out and in much higher quantities. And that's like a big blocker right now that prevents us from doing really dense anythings at a distance. And forest obviously being the big item that we as a team and I guess the fans as well and our art director and I guess everybody wants. Is pretty much the biggest thing that's like being held back by not being able to draw enough things good looking far out. Yeah, but hopefully the Planet Tech team will touch on this in there if they come on the show and can elaborate a bit more on how they're going to solve this issue. But it's definitely on one of the top priorities for our team, and I hope for everybody else as well.
What sort of in the same vein here? What happened to the touch bending, like the binding skeleton to plants on planets, so that they can react to player characters crossing through? They remember seeing some early tests on ISC a while back. Any updates on that?
So that's something is being worked on for a long period of time, as Maxi and Sebastian already talked about. This is something that you don't do once and it's done. You want to study all the possibilities, all the different vegetation types, be it alien, be it more Earth-like. So that's an effort that's being made in conjunction to a new vegetation shader that has been worked on for a while now, and it will still be worked on in the future, where we will not only have touch bending so that the player interacts with the vegetation, but also stuff like better far distance rendering, which we will look into, better billboards, things like that. Probably new wind if we have the possibility to study that, and also a new approach to coloring the vegetation, which will allow us to not only use LUT or what we call LUTs, which are basically some color pickup tables that allow us to make very easy and fast variations of the same assets. But this is also something that will allow us to do stuff like seasons and health on plants, for example. So this is all an ongoing effort that's being done together with the touch bending and all of that. So
Usually, using LUTs to help depict seasons. That's the first I've heard of that. That's really cool.
yes, so basically the current system doesn't allow for a very dynamic way to change the colors. Sometimes you might need to to do some hacky ways to achieve that result. And there is an ongoing progress on a new tech that will allow us to just recolor vegetation using those color lookup tables, essentially. And these will provide not only a better quality, but also make it easier to do that variation. So stuff like seasons will be possible now, once that is done, of course. And also having health states for plants and stuff like that will be way better and easier.
Health states for a plant, you shoot a plant in the arm and it gets an injury.
Yes, exactly. Let's see what the players do.
LUTs are super cool. We're not going to go into what LUTs are, but they're used in cinematography and stuff all the time. A lot of the color and stuff that you see and my housing and stuff is done by messing with LUTs and stuff. So that's cool to hear that being used in that way. It's not usual when I do these shows. Usually I know all the answers before you guys are saying them, and it's not usual I hear anything I haven't heard before. That's cool.
I'm glad.
See how much more you can surprise me, Daniel. Will we ever? All right, so let's set this question up. Star Wars is infamous for having the single biome planets. Here's the desert planet, and here's the jungle planet, and here's the here's the water planet and stuff. Will we ever see multiple biomes with rivers, lakes, waterfalls on planets as diverse as our Earth, with tropical zones, sandy dunes, swamps, forests, all on a single planet?
We would very much love to do that. Like Earth is obviously like the big goal we eventually want to get to. I mean, there's a lot of things that still need to be solved to be able to do anything as diverse as Earth. But I think we can definitely already do something that's like more diverse than single biome planets, and I think we're already doing that for the most part. For Earth, like we'll definitely do more diverse planets, and we'll also like come back to the existing ones and add more diversity as the tech evolves, and allows us to do stuff like that, like rivers and waterfalls. Once those are gonna be a thing at scale, we'll definitely come back and add those in, and probably also make some biomes that go along with them, just so they're nice. But yeah, all the other stuff, we all want to do that. It's just like more or less all the interesting biomes, like a swamp, you then end up being in a place where you want like terrain displacement, like for snow or like mud. You walk through and wade through and get like the player dragging through and like causing leaving a depression in the mud, stuff like that. Like a lot of interesting things and exciting things we do want to do, and we hope to get to in the near future or in the far future, we'll see. But it's still the goal. Like it's until we've done Earth, I think we aren't there yet, tech wise and content wise. So it's definitely the goal, and we will just get more and more and better the longer we do it. But still a ways to go.
Yeah,
I think if you
go ahead. No, go ahead.
like if you compare to like if you look at how we started, right, with Selen and Daemar and Yela, they were technically like Star Wars planets, right? They only had like one thing, and then we tried to like push it with every new release, and then eventually we had Microtech, right, which was like very different. You have like the icy, snowy parts, and then the lusher regions with the trees. So I don't think it's like a spoiler because people saw some of that already during SitCon, but I feel like Pyro and Nyx will push like the biome diversity to a degree that's different and better than what we have right now. So I think people will enjoy that when they eventually see it.
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody who's paid attention to Star Citizen's development over the years, you see the same phenomenon happen across everything. The ships that were made in 2014 are not the ships that can be made in 2020, 2021. The planets that were made in 2016 are not the planets that we can make, today, and will not be the planets that we can make tomorrow. As more tech comes online, as more tech gets developed, and our artists and designers get more familiar with them and get and just better at using them and stuff like this. All these things combine to not just increase the speed at which things come as we exponentially build, but the diversity and the complexity that are involved with it. So yeah, I don't think there's any. You're not spoiling anything, saying that eventually we plan to have Sol in there, we plan to have Earth in Sol, and we want to recreate Earth with as much of the diversity as we can, and that's the key word there, as we can, at the time that it comes at that point when it comes into development. And then of course we're always open and willing to go back and revamp these planets and bring them forward as the new techs come online, so that the planets that were created before this tech exists don't just fall to the wayside. You see that with planets, you see that with ships, you see that with everything. So it is one of the unique challenges of Star Citizen, because we operate a live game environment during our development. We're constantly updating and revamping, and it goes to the lava rivers question before. If maybe the first version of Pyro will have it, maybe it won't. It depends on scheduling and where that tech is with where we are when we want to release it. So since I brought up the lava field things, let's go back to that stuff. What is the overlap in labor between roads, rivers, and lava throws? You already mentioned, Sebastian, that rivers and lava are kind of like the inverse or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's what is the overlap? Does the river work just automatically get us roads and lava, or how does this work?
No. I mean, I assume the Planetech team will get into this a bit more in detail. But like a lot of the things that make a river work will also make a lava river work, right? Just like the name implies. And for roads, a lot of the tech that has been developed and is being developed for the rivers, like adjusting the terrain so it's like flat or like looks like a riverbed, can then be applied to make a road flat and drivable. And but there's still, I assume, I don't know, I'm not on that team, lots to do to make the roads happen. And it's most likely going to be more collaboration between Planetech and the locations teams, and not so much us. We're just like there for awareness, but I don't expect us to do all that much work with roads or on roads, since it's mostly going to be like connecting outposts and connecting cities. So it's basically based on what those teams will need.
Okay. Now, as a disclaimer here, before we get into these next ones here, the Planet Content team is mostly involved in art and tech and stuff, and gameplay is the realm of our gameplay features teams, Dan Truffin and his team and stuff like that. But we'll touch on a few things here that I think you can talk about. What planetary mechanics will force us to use ground vehicles instead of flying a ship? This is a common question that comes up often as more and more ground vehicles get introduced into Star Citizen.
Yeah, like obviously what we want, and I think that's also like aligned with the plan for the tech itself, is that weather, especially extreme weather conditions, will affect the ship and force the player, or like prevent the player from flying through very extreme storms and stuff like that. And that we could definitely see this being a feature that will prevent the player from flying and needing to use ground vehicles more in certain areas, or maybe on entire planets.
As weather continues to be developed, some of these lesser aerodynamic ships, you may have more and more trouble reaching ground safely in some conditions.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Are the clouds, as a follow-up to this, are the clouds purely cosmetic, or do they have additional metadata attached leading up to this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, technically they already, like, there's some stuff attached to it. Like you could, for example, in the Pyro demo, you could see the lighting storms, and those are already like piggybacking off some data that's coming with the cloud density and like the type that's there. And there's like once other teams hook into this and use it more, they can make use of the clouds and have them have gameplay implications for the players and the playership.
Somebody in the chat mentioned like magnetic differences in certain planets making navigation, impossible, like with the poles messed up or something, like things as examples of things that could stop you from flying in the atmosphere of a planet and wanting to transition to a ground vehicle. Open to all kinds of stuff. Let's see, what else do we got from the chat here? When's the Polaris coming out?
The what? Sorry, I didn't.
So, no, it's not a question for you. I'm just
Okay.
trolling the person in the chat who thought they should ask the Planet Content team that. What new biomes or locations from Star Citizen's lore do you think would be a challenge to tackle?
Earth.
Besides the
Definitely.
forest that you mentioned, that we talked about earlier, the dense forest. Who wants to
This is
jump
a
on this
tricky
one?
one, I will say. Right, there's a bunch of stuff that tech can still handle. I will say, yeah, the forest is the obvious ones.
Right.
Yeah, I mean other stuff like swarms is also something like if we do them, then we want to do them right. So we definitely need some more tech there. Would be my answer to that. Aside from the forest. But,
Here's a question in the chat. What about quicksand? As a child of the 80s, I'm very concerned with quicksand.
well, I think we're all concerned with quicksand, even though it turns out not to be that important in life.
Growing up in the 80s, it was like quicksand was, you thought quicksand was everywhere. Like every alien planet you went to, every strange country you went to, there was always quicksand dangers. And yet, I've been on this planet nearly 50 years, I've never encountered quicksand.
Yeah. I'm not even sure, does it even work the way it does in real life as it does in films? I don't think it does.
I don't
know. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we have desert planets, so maybe. Maybe.
All right. Will Stanton get some of the canyon and rock spires that we saw as part of Pyro during this year's CitizenCon? Or are the Stanton landscapes finalized?
I mean, like you already hinted at, I mean, we always try to go back to the older planets and make sure they match the newer content. But yeah, for some of the Pyro rock sets that we made are specific to Pyro, right? You want it to feel different. You don't want like the same, I don't know, like spiky rock set on 5 planets, right? But for like generic stuff, like generic cliffs, some boulders and stuff, if we do feel like we have better sets that could complement what's already on Daemar, for example, then we do go in and switch it out. But yeah, technically we do make things specific for whatever planet we are creating, so that everything has like its own vibe and feel.
Big canyons and rock spires are a common question that comes up. There's a lot of that in the live chat right now. Do you ever foresee the Planet Tech allowing cliffs with like overhangs? Like the kind of thing Wile E. Coyote would run out over, they kind of stick out and then kind of just come back and down.
It's like ever since we I mean, probably since forever, but definitely since we worked on Planet Tech before, that has been like the big thing we always like try to get to work, but haven't been able to figure out how to do. And it's still very difficult to do just because of how our tech works and like a lot of the specific quirks to make a planet at scale just work and at all distances. It's something we always come back to, like at least once a year. We're like, oh, can't we do this to make cliffs happen, or like overhangs happen? And I think there's a lot of very interesting stuff that's planned to happen in the next whenever, we'll see, in the future. I don't want to commit anyone to anything, so but there are definitely technical improvements planned that will make things like that more feasible and allow us to do better things easier and quicker. And one of them could hopefully be, if not overhangs, I mean, probably also overhangs, but just better looking cliffs, or like any cliffs at all, and like really straight cliff faces, which we really can't do right now because reasons. So yeah, there's things are being done, and I'm very hopeful that they will improve a lot of things and allow us to do things we couldn't do before. Like fix the tiling of the ground textures, make proper cliffs, and integrate assets better with the terrain. Like all of this thing will piggyback on some of the fundamentals that are being worked on in the near or in some future.
The person who asked about the Polaris is now giving crap to the person who asked about server meshing, and chat is just like turning on itself. Don't do that, chat. Be better. With cliffs and whatnot, I know the conversation always turns to like texture stretching and stuff like this to make it's the procedural tools. We want to find solutions that work with our procedural tools that and we're trying to avoid handcrafting these things because we can't do that. That's not a scalable solution. When it's not that we couldn't hire an artist to go and just build a cliff with an overhang and then plop it there, but that's not a sustainable solution for all of the planets and moons that we have to do. How do you balance that? Oh, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look realistic when there are with some of the weirdest looking things that actually exist on our planet, like Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Have you ever seen Devil's Tower? That thing looks like a mistake. That thing looks like something a junior associate artist made on their first day and would get yelled at by an art director. But I mean, it's real and it's iconic and it actually happened. How do you balance that unbelievability with it's actually possible sometimes?
We do sometimes have these things happen where you have like a weird bug, right? But then the fans really like it. Like we have this one example. It's called the Scatter Rock. I think that's the name of it. And like one day, Sebastian sent me like a thread from the forum, and he was like, "Oh, like was this like a point of interest or was this a bug?" And people complained that like this huge overhang plate on Magda, it was, I think, was gone, and apparently it became like this travel destination for people to like check out. And like I don't know if we took it out like on purpose or if someone just tweaked like a setting in the procedural generation and it disappeared, right? But it was like if we look at that, it's like it just looks wrong, right? But then obviously like the players see it and feel like, oh, what's this? Looks different. That's super cool. Let's go there. Let's meet up. So we did feel a bit bad that it disappeared and we brought it back. But yeah, in general, I mean, we also want like more interesting cliff formations, more points of interest for people to find. But like you say, it's like, yeah, we could build that, but there's so much space that we would need to fill. And until we have a solution that lets us, confidently fill all of it in same quality bar, we don't try to do that, because then it just sticks out like a sore thumb, right? You have this one area that's like neatly dressed, and then you go like 5 minutes to the right, and it looks a bit procedural again. Yeah, so that's a tricky balance.
It is one of the biggest distinctions between our project and other games that can make that are out there with amazingly dynamic environments and stuff that we have to build procedurally so that it scales and such like that. So it sometimes means that landscape features that seem basic and normal and like it would be one of the first things in any other game sometimes take a little bit longer for our stuff. But if we've shown anything over the years, we'll get it. I'm going to commit you guys to that. We'll get it. Marco's like, what did you just say? I'm going to get an email from Marco. What type of minables are we going to explore when we have the new systems in? Are they just going to be the same things from Stanton repainted in a different color for Pyro, or are they new? Is the Is it new flora? Is it new minables? It's how different are we going here?
I mean, I guess the plan is that you only find certain minables on certain planets, right? So that there's like an incentive for a player to whatever visit the Pyro system instead of going to Stanton again, right? Because you need like a very specific resource. Like we're not in the loop, I think, on the whole like economic aspect of it. Like if they need us to make different assets like new harvestables, new minables, like we're happy to do that, right? But yeah, I don't think the plan is that you can find everything everywhere all the time. Does that make
I
sense?
think we already did some new harvestables for Pyro in the past. It's been a while now again since we started work on Pyro. So I think they exist, but it's been over a year since we worked on those, maybe more.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler, right?
No.
Okay, we made some new stuff.
We make new content for a new system. Sorry.
Surprise.
There's no spoilers for Pyro. Share what you got. Share what you got.
Yeah.
It is worth noting though that while there certainly should be things that are unique to Pyro. These systems have been explored and traversed for decades in our fictional timeline, sometimes hundreds of years. So there's going to be cross pollination. There are going to be people who bring melons from one system and plant them in another system, with these colonial outposts and stuff like that. So there would be some natural cross contamination, cross pollination. So I think folks can expect a mixture of things that are unique to the Pyro system and things that that are shared with the Stanton. I mean, even the stuff in the Stanton, is, if you look at the lore of some of the harvestables that you see in Stanton, they themselves, the fiction behind them, originated in other systems and were brought to Stanton in the lore. So there's going to be some cross-pollination. And that includes in the fauna as well. I mean, because settlers bring cows with them, horses with them, and stuff like that. So you see that kind of stuff too.
No fauna questions, though. We don't.
No fauna questions. That's not you. That's not you, folks. What are the blockers for adding more altitude or depth to planets?
Right. Like if we're talking about local altitude and depth, I guess people can refer back to the sitcom talk from 2 years ago when we talked about the Planetech, or like when Ali talked about the Planetech at length. He I think he went on this issue at length. What has changed recently? There was a hard-coded limit to the global elevation that has now been drastically increased, and so we will be doing more with that and having more height differences across the whole planet, but not necessarily in a very local area, because that has still the same issues of texture stretching and that stuff. That isn't gone until some of the things that are being worked on will hopefully make the planet shader much cheaper again, and then we can afford to do things like triplanar protection of textures on the terrain, and then we might be able to finally confidently do very steep slopes and have assets integrate well with them. But until then, we really won't be doing super steep terrain parts.
As a follow-up to the lava question, what about volcanoes? Any thought or development on volcanoes?
I mean, that's largely a VFX question, I think. Like, sure, once we have rivers and lakes, and we have lava rivers and lakes, the volcano part will be gameplay and VFX, doing the rest mostly. So yeah, would be for those teams, I'd say.
Yeah. We talked about how some of the about how we need to build the procedural aspects for the cliffs with overhangs and stuff like that. But as far as points of interest, specific rock formations, or things that can be used like as landmarks like the Scott's Bluff or Mount Fuji. Is that stuff that you would still craft, by hand and place in, or is that something that also works through we'd want to work through the procedural system?
I mean, Max has already touched on this, that we don't want to right now do things manually that won't work at scale for us. But obviously, like, different planets will have different unique features. Like Stanton 1 has the mining pit, has the big mining pit and stuff like that. And some of Pyro and Nyx will also have unique features like that. And we do try to handcraft them within the system as much as we can. But yeah, I mean, we're always trying to work within the procedural tools and make those things happen. And unless it's like the iconic feature that makes or breaks this planet, we will stay away from handcrafting things too much. But yeah, I think it's always a balancing act.
It's always a delicate alchemy. Let's talk about caves. I feel like we haven't talked about caves in forever. What can you tell us, if anything? I'm just going to start with a wide question here. What can you tell us about caves? Are we done? Have we seen all the caves we're ever going to see? Are there more caves in our future? Bigger, badder, more dangerous? What do you got for us? Anything? Cave bros want to know. Cave bros want to know.
So I guess I could start by saying that, at least personally, I guess each one of us have a lot of crazy ideas we would like to see for caves. Like lava caves under a volcano would be awesome. But of course, as we talked about, there's tech dependencies. I don't know, ice caves, fungi caves where you have a lot of bioluminescence going on, stuff like that. I personally would love to see that, but I guess Maxi can spoil it.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have like rocky caves, right? So we definitely will need more archetypes for caves, because we can't put like a rocky cave on, I don't know, the icy regions of Microtech. So that will need its own cave. And yeah, I mean, we've done work on that.
You're allowed to say that we're working on new cave archetypes.
I never know what I'm allowed to say and what not, but yeah.
Whatever you want about the new cave archetypes.
Yeah.
I'm the one that gets in trouble. They yell at me, so you just talk. You just talk.
Yeah.
Have
I mean,
fun.
we have plans to extend the current cave systems and add more archetypes. So yeah, rocky is what we have, but we want to improve the look of the rocky caves. Then yeah, desert caves that will fit nicely on Daema, which obviously are going to look way different than the rocky caves. Then we're going to have hopefully caves that are more overgrown, like moss and lots of foliage, ice caves, and acidic caves. Yes.
Underwater caves?
So yeah, that's a tricky one, right? I will say yes from an art planet content team perspective. I think it's not so different to create an underwater environment than it is to create any other kind of cave. But there is a lot of tech dependencies and gameplay dependencies that we can't, take on ourselves. But I guess when the time comes, we will all be very excited to do so.
What about
Once the player no longer dies in water, I think water in caves will be a thing.
and I swear this is from the chat, not from me. What about caves we can fly through?
There have been conversations about that. It's obviously going to be a lot more work to make a cave as large that you can actually fly through and still maintain the same visual quality that you want when you walk through it. So there have been conversations about that, and I think they are eventually going to happen, but we're not working on them right now. But because somebody asked what the thing on the progress tracker is that's not announced on the Planet Content team, we're working on new cave archetypes. That's the thing we're going to do this year.
I if I'm allowed to speak on behalf of the Damar Rally and the Stanton 7 folks and stuff like this, caves that they could actually traverse through as part of the race would really open things up.
Yeah, we're starting small though. We'll get to the big ones later.
Okay. I can already see the emails coming. I definitely chose violence this morning. Why is my tank flipping over when I ram a small tree or a succulent and not the other way around? Who built the indestructible succulents, Max?
Wasn't someone? It wasn't one of us, but that's more a limitation of the system, where like it can't differentiate between like the golf cart vehicle that we have and like the rover, for example. So yeah, we understand that that's frustrating. Yeah, and it's also like tricky for us to get that right. With like some of the randomization values that we have, where a small rock that the golf cart would get stuck on, or that you would expect the golf cart to get stuck on, but the rover to drive through, we have to like decide on one or the other, right? For now, eventually the system is going to get improvements, right? It's going to automatically check, for example, based on the bounding box, if an asset is supposed to have collision or not have collision. But yeah, for now, we understand it's a bit of a problem. So we try to avoid that, like, little succulents make the vehicles flip, which is unfortunate. Yeah.
You're already killing us with the
wait.
rocks, man.
Sorry. And we can't wait for the succulents to start exploding when you drive over them.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully gonna happen. Like, yeah.
That leads me into the follow-up question about the rocks. Obviously, we've made some. I think it's fair to say we've made some improvements over the last year with the sheer volume of rocks that folks encounter as they drive along the surface of some of our planets and moons. Is that dialed in? Is that where you want it right now, or is there still more work to do there?
You mean the amount of rocks?
The amount of them. The nightmare of driving across some of these surfaces.
We've heard the feedback in the past, and I think we try nowadays to keep keep in mind that there needs to be like a good balance, right? It can't all be covered in boulders and rocks to get stuck on. So yeah, we also went back, and I hope the fans and the players will see that we did go back to the old moons and try to have more drivable space in there. But yeah, I mean, for us, like, it's a struggle because obviously we want to like cover everything nicely, like have something interesting everywhere. But I also understand if you want to like have a race and you get stuck every 5 meters, that sucks. But yeah, for example, on Pyro and Nyx, we did keep that in mind from the get-go. So there is a good balance of biomes where you immediately know, okay, this is one where driving is going to be tricky, and then you have another one where it's like, okay, this is a good one to drive through to kind of guide you a bit. So yeah, we're doing better on that.
Oh no, you guys are legitimately doing better. Like watching this year's Damar Rally was a much more enjoyable experience than in years past because of that. Okay. You mentioned Nyx. I'm not going to let you off from that. What can you tell us, if anything, about your work on Nyx?
Yeah, we did work on that. Like lots of work. Looks pretty good. It's like we still have to do like one final polish pass on it. But yeah, before server meshing isn't ready. Yeah, it's not us holding that back, I think.
Is Nyx being created?
Is that too much?
No. Is Nyx being created with the same planet tech tools that the other planets and moons are?
Yes. Yeah.
is Nyx a perfectly round thing, or is or how does it differ? It seems like it might be different. Go ahead. If you say anything like anybody gets mad at, they'll get mad at me, not you.
Are you asking about Delamar? So like
Yeah.
Nyx is a system, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm speaking of Delamar specifically.
Right. Yeah, every now and then we get asked to see if we can't make a non-spherical planet. And we try, and then something breaks horribly, and then we say we can't. So I think it's going to be a little bit less spherical than it is right now, and it was Delamar was before. But it's not going to look like a potato, unfortunately.
Not with that attitude.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
Sorry, it's a bad American idiom. I apologize.
yeah, just.
Let's see. We are almost done. We just have a few minutes left to go. What planets or what's your favorite planet or moon in the Pyro system at this moment? This is a personal question. This is a personal question about you. Just they can't see it. You can't spoil anything here. What's your personal favorite planet or moon in the Pyro system?
That's tricky.
You're
You
gonna
can say
what
it's the one you worked on.
Yeah.
It's-
I'm gonna say Pyro 2 for that.
Pyro
yeah,
2?
for me, it's Pyro 4, which
Why
looks
Pyro
the
2?
best.
Daniel?
What? Because so the thing about Pyro is that I feel the planets are very, they feel unique to themselves. They have an identity, I think. And Pyro mostly because it was the planet I worked on, and it was the first planet I worked for Star Citizen, but also because it is a more deserty kind of planet with a mix of other stuff going on, and I like the color palette that it brings and the vibe in general.
Okay. And Max, why Pyro 4?
Yeah, like I said before, it has like more biome diversity, which is nice, and I feel like it's a good mix between more alien looking, like otherworldly biomes, but it still feels grounded. And I like the colors of it. So yeah.
Sebastian?
Pyro 3. Like
Pyro 3, why?
I liked working on the clouds and the moss mostly, and the colors are great. I think black and yellow just works.
Pyro 3 was the one from the Citizen Gun demo, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, I'm going to ask this. I already know the answer, but we're going to ask this so that everybody else knows the answer. Do you guys work on ArcCorp?
It's always on our backlog to make sure it doesn't rot and like break horribly, but we are aware that it has declined a tiny bit in quality, and there's a backlog item on our backlog, an item on our backlog about going back to it and evaluating what its current state is and what we can do to improve it. It has always been the odd one out, like it's breaking all the rules of the Planetech. Always has. So it's very difficult and tricky to work with, and it's very easy to break. Obviously, we would like to do it justice as much as we can, but it's also not the most fun planet to work on.
Yeah, when we talk about the systemic solutions, I think ArcCorp is a different beast from every other planet and moon in Star Citizen. It uses different tech. It uses, it's a whole nother thing. So I think it's safe to say to everybody who was asking, and it was coming up a lot in the chat, that it is not forgotten and it will not be ignored. It's just that we're developed with the tech that's being developed by the Planet Tech team and stuff that's pushing the tech forward with Pyro and with Nyx and with other things beyond that. Our focus is just there on the more organic side, but there will be a day when the wheel of development spins back around and it comes back to ArcCorp, just like it does everything at some point, and it'll get its time in the sun.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, just by the nature of Planetech evolving, eventually it will have changed so much that it breaks ArcCorp, and then we'll have to go back. So latest by then we'll.
Until then, players can look forward to the newest planet, Rock Corp, which will just be
that we can
all
do.
rocks.
Easy.
It'll be impossible to drive on. Rock Corp. Take
It's
that
gonna
to
be my
Reddit.
favorite.
Reddit confirmed. Rock Corp. It's actually happening. And it's happening in the next. Sorry. We don't do when questions on the thing. At the beginning of this, people are like, "Oh, so Pyro's not coming this year?" I'm like, "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we don't do when questions on the video. We haven't done when questions on videos for like years, and people still ask." It's like, but me not saying Pyro's coming this year or not, it's not the same as saying it's not coming this year. It's me saying I'm not saying when. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything more than that. I had a morning. All right, Sebastian, Daniel, Max, you did it. You survived. You survived Star Citizen Life. How do you feel?
Relieved. No, it was
You didn't
pretty
get-
good. It was
It was
pretty good.
fun.
Yeah.
Might have lost one of my lives, but I'm good.
You didn't get anybody in trouble. I see a couple messages on Teams though, so I'll probably have to deal with some stuff. But thank you so much for being on the show. Next week's Inside Star Citizen. What is it? We've got a look at some of the updates to the character creator that are coming online in 3.17 and beyond. The new DNA head textures, stuff with the eyes and the eyebrows, and maybe if we can manage it, a tease of some new hair stuff, and then. I can't remember what the other one is. Planetary nav mesh. Discussion with the AI team about getting AIs that are going to be able to roam the surface of the planets. Those are coming in next week's ISC, and then we'll be right back here next week with the Stars in Live with the props team. We're going to jump into the Pyro system and see if we can't make something fun to go into the Pyro system with the props team next week. So that's Max. No, this direction. That was Max. That was Daniel. Good job on your first video, Daniel.
Thank you.
That's Sebastian. I'm Jared. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.